Princess Lyra of Cytheria stood on the balcony of the palace, her eyes scanning the horizon. The twin suns were setting, casting golden light over the floating towers and crystal gardens of the capital. From above, Cytheria looked like a world, made of glass and fire sparkling in every direction. But Lyra did not feel the magic today. Her heart was heavy, filled with the weight of duty. Tomorrow she was expected to attend the alliance ceremony, a grand event that would determine the political future of her planet. As the only daughter of the Cytherian king, her marriage would strengthen alliances with other worlds. The stakes were enormous. The ceremony was not just a celebration. It was a promise of power, peace, and control. For her, it was a trap dressed in beauty. Lyra. A soft voice called from behind her. It was her tutor, Seren, a wise and gentle woman who had guided her since childhood. You should rest. Tomorrow is important. Lyra turned, her silver hair catching the last rays of the sun. I cannot rest, she said. The ceremony, it feels like it is already deciding my life for me. Seren stepped closer, placing a hand on Lyra's shoulder. Duty is heavy, yes, but you are not powerless. Remember, your heart can still guide you, even within the rules. Lyra gave a faint smile, but inside she felt a storm of doubt. Duty, honor, tradition. They were chains that shimmered like gold but bound her tightly. She wished for something more, something real, something free. The next morning, the palace was alive with activity. Drones floated through the halls carrying messages and ceremonial decorations. Servants adjusted Lyra's robes and advisors whispered strategies in her ears. Everything was perfect, precise, and controlled. But as Lyra walked through the palace gardens, she noticed something unusual at the main spaceport. A small group of humans had arrived for the trade delegation. Humans were rare in Cytheria, their presence often stirring curiosity and cautious fascination. They were smaller than Cytherians, without wings or the glow in their eyes, but there was a spark of something unique in them. A warmth, a courage, a curiosity. One human, in particular, caught her attention. He was tall by human standards, with brown hair and eyes that seemed to shine with intelligence. He moved among the Cytherians with ease, speaking politely but confidently. He smiled at a small group of traders, gesturing at the machinery with enthusiasm. Lyra felt an unexpected tug at her heart. Who was this human? There was something in the way he observed the world, not just with his eyes but with his mind. He was different from the royals and nobles who always measured people in terms of power or advantage. Curiosity drew her closer. She walked along the edge of the garden, pretending to admire the floating orchids, until she was near enough to hear him speak. Your engines are impressive, he said, addressing a Cytherian engineer. But have you considered the airflow in low gravity? It could double efficiency if adjusted here. The engineer blinked. Most people do not notice such details. That's because most people do not care, the human replied with a grin. I do. Lyra stifled a laugh. His words were simple, yet there was a spark of brilliance in them. She stepped forward, and the human noticed her. Princess Lyra, he said, bowing slightly. I did not expect to see you here. Lyra raised an eyebrow. I often visit the spaceport. It is part of my inspection duties. Her voice was calm, but her heart raced. There was something about him, something that made her feel alive. I am Evan, he said. I am here to study your planet's technology and see what humans and Cytherians can learn from each other. Lyra smiled faintly. Humans are visitors, not students of Cytheria. Evan laughed softly. Perhaps, but every visitor can learn, and every world has something to teach. The moment felt suspended, in time. Lyra realized she had not expected to feel excitement in months or perhaps years. The feeling was foreign but thrilling. Her world was so controlled, so predictable, yet here was someone who seemed to move through it freely. I must return to my duties, Lyra said softly, hiding her growing fascination. But it is nice to meet you, Evan. Likewise. Princess, he replied. Perhaps we can meet again. I would like to show you something humans have created, something I think you will find interesting." Lyra nodded, though inside she felt a flutter she could not name. That evening, Lyra sat alone in her private chamber. The twin moons of Zetheria reflected in her large window, silver light washing over her. She could not stop thinking about Evan. He was not a prince or a noble. He was human. Ordinary in a sense, but extraordinary in ways that mattered most. Her father, the king, entered without warning, his tall figure casting a long shadow in the room. "Lyra," he said, his voice firm but not unkind. "Tomorrow is the alliance ceremony. You must be ready. There is no room for hesitation." Lyra stood. "Father, I understand my duty. I will perform it as expected." The king's eyes searched hers. "Do you?" he asked. "A princess must always put the kingdom first. The alliance we forge tomorrow will decide the future of Zetheria for generations. Do not let distractions sway you." Lyra lowered her gaze. "I will not, Father." But in her heart, a tiny seed of rebellion had been planted. She did not yet know what form it would take, but she knew one thing. She wanted more than a life decided by tradition. She wanted choice. She wanted freedom. The next morning, Lyra prepared for the ceremony. Her robes shimmered with starlight, and her crown reflected the rising suns. The palace halls were filled with guests, their voices blending into a constant hum of diplomacy and etiquette. She moved gracefully among them, smiling when expected, bowing when required. Yet her thoughts wandered to Evan. She wondered what he would say if he could see her now, standing among the elites, playing the role she had been taught since birth. Would he see the weight on her shoulders, the longing in her eyes? As she walked toward the grand hall, a small hand reached for hers. She turned to see Evan, standing beside a trading machine he had come to inspect. "You came," she whispered, a mix of surprise and relief in her voice. "I promised I would," he said. "I wanted to see you before everything begins." Lyra smiled. For a moment, she forgot the ceremony, the alliance, the duty. There was only the present, and there was Evan. "Be careful," he said softly. "Tomorrow will test you in ways you cannot imagine." Lyra nodded. "I know. But thank you for reminding me there is a world outside the palace walls." They shared a quiet moment, looking at the city below. For Lyra, it was a small rebellion, a choice to feel something real amidst the obligations of royalty. For Evan, it was a promise to stand beside her, even if the world tried to keep them apart. As night fell and the palace lights glittered like stars, Lyra returned to her chamber. She did not know what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time in her life she felt the stirring of hope and courage. She was a princess, yes, but she was also a young woman with a heart of her own, and that heart was beginning to choose its own path. The sun rose over Zetheria, painting the sky in shades of orange and violet. Princess Lyra sat in the palace garden, her legs tucked beneath her as she watched the floating fountains shimmer in the morning light. The memory of yesterday's encounter with Evan lingered in her mind. His presence was unlike anything she had ever known, bright, curious, and warm. Her tutor, Seren, approached quietly. "Princess," she said softly, "you seem distracted this morning. Is something troubling you?" Lyra looked up, a small smile tugging at her lips. "No, Seren. I am just thinking." Seren arched an eyebrow. "About the ceremony?" Lyra hesitated. She knew she could not tell Seren everything, not yet. "A little," she admitted, "but also about other things." Seren nodded, sensing the unspoken words. Sometimes the heart notices things that the mind does not. "Remember, Lyra, your choices define who you are, not just your duties." Lyra sighed and stood, brushing off the folds of her silken robes. "I will remember, Seren." "Thank you." Later that day, Lyra found herself wandering near the spaceport again. Her official duties gave her an excuse to be there, but it was Evan she truly sought. She hoped he had returned, though she knew humans did not linger in royal spaces without reason. To her relief, she saw him by a sleek spacecraft, examining its engine with careful attention. When he noticed her, his face lit up with a smile. "Princess Lyra," he greeted. "I did not expect to see you so early." "I had matters to attend to," Lyra replied, keeping her voice steady. "And perhaps I wanted to see something unusual in the spaceport," Evan laughed. "I suppose you mean me." Lyra smiled, feeling a warmth in her chest. "Perhaps," she admitted. He gestured toward a small hover car parked nearby. "Would you like to see something?" he asked. "It's a human design, meant to move efficiently even in low-gravity zones. I think you might find it interesting, curiosity. One over caution." "Show me," she said, stepping closer. Evan guided her through the vehicle's controls, explaining how each lever and panel worked. Lyra listened intently, fascinated not just by the technology, but by the way Evan spoke, with passion and clarity. Unlike the nobles at court, who often spoke in calculated tones, Evan's words carried sincerity and excitement. "You care about the details," Lyra observed. Evan nodded. "The small details often make the biggest difference. People overlook them because they focus only on appearances or protocol. But the truth is in the little things." Lyra felt a strange connection forming, as if his words were opening a door inside her. "I understand," she said softly. They spent the morning exploring the spaceport together, sharing quiet conversations and laughter. Each moment felt stolen from the weight of duty, yet Lyra could not resist it. She had always followed the rules, always obeyed her father, always performed her role perfectly. But with Evan, she felt alive in a way she had never imagined. As the day wore on, Lyra's advisors began to notice her distraction. "Your Highness," one whispered during a meeting, "are you prepared for the alliance ceremony?" Lyra nodded politely, though her thoughts drifted to Evan. She kept her focus, but a small rebellion had begun inside her heart. The king, always perceptive, noticed too. That evening he entered her private chambers, his expression stern. "Lyra, I hear troubling reports," he said. "You have been seen speaking with a human repeatedly. Humans are visitors. They are not to interfere with our affairs." Lyra met his gaze. "Father, he is just someone I met. I enjoy his company. It does not interfere with my duties." The king's eyes narrowed. "Enjoyment is dangerous. You are a princess, Lyra. Your choices affect our entire kingdom. Do not forget your responsibilities." "I have not forgotten," she said, her voice steady. "But perhaps there is a way to fulfill my duty and still experience life beyond the palace." The king shook his head, sighing heavily. "I hope you understand, Lyra. One day you will see the importance of sacrifice." Lyra looked down, but inside a fire had begun to burn. Sacrifice was easy to demand from others, but she wondered if true strength lay in following one's heart, even against duty. The following days brought more secret meetings. Lyra and Evan found hidden corners of the palace gardens where they could speak freely. They talked about stars, dreams, and the vastness of the universe. Evan shared stories of Earth, describing oceans, forests, and cities that floated with lights like stars. Lyra told him about Zytheria, its history, and its people. Through these conversations, Lyra realized how little she had truly seen of her own world. The palace walls were beautiful, but limiting. Tradition was powerful, but sometimes suffocating. And yet in her heart she felt a sense of purpose and joy she had never known. One evening, as they watched the twin moons rise over the floating city, Evan spoke softly. "Princess, I do not expect anything. I know your life is not simple. But I want you to know, humans value freedom and choice, and I admire those who follow their hearts, no matter the cost." Lyra's heart raced. His words resonated deeply. I feel the same," she admitted. "But my father, he expects obedience. My kingdom, My people? Evan reached out, taking her hand gently. And yet, here you are, choosing to be yourself, even for a moment. That is courage, Princess. You have more strength than you know. For the first time, Lyra truly believed it. Strength was not only in obeying rules or fulfilling duty, it was in making choices that mattered to the heart. But not everyone remained unaware. One of the palace guards had seen them in the gardens and reported the encounter to the king, so news spread quickly, reaching the ears of advisors and nobles. Whispers followed Lyra wherever she went. The king, upon learning of the growing bond, summoned her immediately. Lyra, he said, his voice icy. I have been patient, but this infatuation with a human cannot continue. You must end it, or there will be consequences. Lyra met his gaze, her eyes steady. Father, I cannot ignore what I feel. He is kind, intelligent, and brave. I respect him. I admire him. And You admire him? The king interrupted sharply. Lyra, you risk everything, our alliances, our people, our honor. Do you understand what you are doing? I do, she said, her voice firm. And I believe in what I feel. I will not abandon my heart, even for duty. The king's face darkened with anger, but beneath it was something else. Fear. He knew the pressure of royal expectation, the weight of alliances, but he also recognized his daughter's resolve. You are testing limits you do not yet understand, he said, but I will not force you yet. Remember, Lyra, the galaxy watches. One wrong choice can undo everything. Lyra bowed, though inside she felt unbroken. The conversation only strengthened her resolve. She had discovered a world beyond rules. A world of connection, curiosity, and choice. That night, Lyra returned to the garden where Evan waited. The stars shimmered above, the twin moons reflecting on the crystal fountains. You were summoned, Evan said softly. I hope it was not too harsh. Lyra shook her head. It was expected, but it does not change what I feel. I cannot stop thinking about you. Evan smiled, his eyes gentle. Then we will face whatever comes together. The universe is wide, Princess, and courage can make a difference, even in small ways. They walked together among the floating flowers, their hands brushing lightly, sharing silent laughter and whispered dreams. For Lyra, these moments were precious, a sanctuary in a world of duty, expectation, and endless rules. She knew challenges lay ahead. The alliance ceremony would test her. The king would insist on obedience. Nobles would watch her every move. But for the first time, Lyra felt that she could face it all. She had discovered strength not in titles or orders, but in her heart. And with Evan by her side, she realized that even in a galaxy bound by duty, love and courage could create freedom. For the first time, Princess Lyra was beginning to see a life that was truly hers. The morning of the alliance ceremony arrived with a sky painted in soft blues and golds. Cytheria's capital buzzed with energy as dignitaries from countless worlds arrived, their ships gliding gracefully to the landing platforms. Princess Lyra stood in her private chamber, gazing at the reflections of the twin suns dancing across her ceremonial robes. The weight of the day pressed heavily upon her shoulders. Her father, the king, entered without announcement. Lyra, he said, his tone firm, today is more than a celebration. It is the moment when you secure the future of our kingdom. You must be composed, precise, and obedient. Do you understand? Lyra nodded, hiding the turmoil inside her heart. I understand, father. The king's eyes softened slightly. Remember, princess, duty is the path of wisdom. The galaxy watches Cytheria closely. One misstep could ripple across worlds. Lyra swallowed, her mind torn between the duty that bound her and the love that called her. She had spent the past days with Evan, exploring hidden corners of the palace, sharing stories, and feeling a freedom she had never known. But today, everything demanded that she put her personal feelings aside. The palace hall was breathtaking. Towers of crystal reflected the sunlight, casting rainbows across the marble floors. Nobles from far-off planets wore attire more elaborate than Lyra had ever seen. Their eyes, sharp and calculating, observed every movement, every gesture. Prince Valor, the chosen suitor for the alliance, waited at the center of the hall. He was tall and regal, with flowing robes that shimmered like metal. His gaze was cold, assessing, measuring Lyra as if she were another object in the political machinery. He bowed deeply when she approached. "Princess Lyra," he said, his voice smooth and precise. "It is an honor to finally meet you in person." Lyra nodded politely, her smile courteous but distant. His presence reminded her sharply of her obligations. Yet even as she followed protocol, her thoughts drifted to Evan, the warmth of his smile, the excitement in his voice, the freedom he represented. As the ceremony began, ambassadors and rulers took their places, and the formal rituals of alliance were carried out. Speeches emphasized duty, loyalty, and power. The crowd murmured approval at every word. Lyra's heart pounded in her chest. Every glance toward Evan, who had been invited as part of the technological delegation, sent a flutter through her. She had not expected him to attend, but there he was, standing respectfully at the edge of the hall. His eyes found hers briefly, and in that instant, the world narrowed to just the two of them. The king's voice echoed through the chamber. "Princess Lyra, step forward." Lyra walked to the center, her robes flowing behind her. Prince Valor bowed again, and the crowd awaited the exchange of vows. Her mind raced. Duty demanded she follow tradition, that she honor the alliance, that she secure the kingdom's future. But her heart whispered another truth: love, choice, freedom. As the officiating elder prepared to speak, Lyra's pulse quickened. She could see the eyes of every noble, every ambassador, every ruler upon her. The room seemed to grow smaller, tighter, as though pressing her into a decision. Evan stepped closer, his presence calm yet strong. He did not speak, only met her gaze, offering silent support. Lyra's heart leapt. Here was someone who understood courage not as obedience, but as choice. The elder began, reciting the traditional words of alliance. Lyra felt her mind split between two worlds, one of duty, honor, and obligation, and another of freedom, emotion, and love. Every syllable of the ceremony echoed in her ears, yet her thoughts remained fixed on Evan. Her hand trembled as she reached for the ceremonial scroll, the symbol of her forthcoming union with Prince Valor. She could feel the weight of expectation, the heavy eyes of the galaxy upon her. And then a single thought crystallized in her mind. She could not betray her heart. She withdrew her hand from the scroll. Silence rippled through the hall. The elder's voice faltered, and Prince Valor's eyes widened in surprise. The king's face tightened, a storm of disbelief and anger rising within him. "I cannot proceed," Lyra said, her voice steady despite the tremor of fear in her chest. "I cannot honor this alliance through marriage, not when it demands I abandon my heart. I choose my own path." Gasps filled the hall. Nobles whispered furiously among themselves. Diplomats exchanged shocked glances. Even the elder, accustomed to centuries of tradition, paused in stunned silence. Lyra turned toward Evan. His eyes were steady, filled with understanding and encouragement. "I choose love," she continued. "I choose freedom. I choose the life I wish to live, and the person with whom I wish to share it." Prince Valor's expression hardened. "Princess, you cannot defy tradition. You are risking not only your honor but the stability of your kingdom." Lyra held her head high. "I understand the risks, but I cannot live a life that is not my own. I will not sacrifice my heart for duty alone." The king stepped forward, his presence commanding. "Lyra," he said, his voice trembling with a mixture of anger and fear, "you defy not just me but the legacy of Zytheria. Do you realize the consequences?" "I do, father," she replied. and I am willing to face them. I have learned that courage is not just in obedience. It is in standing for what is right, even when it is difficult. The king's face darkened, but beneath it was a flicker of understanding. He saw the strength in her eyes, the certainty in her voice, the undeniable truth that she had grown beyond the constraints of the palace. Evan stepped forward. "Your Majesty," he said, his voice calm but firm, "I care for Princess Lyra deeply. I would not ask her to risk anything lightly, but I stand by her choice. She is brave, wise, and strong. These qualities are what make her a leader, not tradition alone." The king looked at Evan, studying him carefully. He was a human, yes, and unbound by royal protocol. Yet there was a courage in him that even Zitherian tradition could respect. He could see that Lyra's choice was not reckless. It was deliberate, considered, and powerful. The hall remained tense. Whispers continued, but slowly, a shift began. Some nobles who had seen the strength of Lyra's character over the years nodded subtly to one another. Even in a room steeped in tradition, there was admiration for the bravery it took to defy expectation. Lyra stepped closer to Evan, taking his hand in hers. "Together," she said softly, "we will find a way to honor our worlds while honoring our hearts." Evan smiled. "Together," he agreed. The king remained silent for a long moment, studying his daughter. Anger still lingered, but so did something else. Pride. She had made a choice of her own, standing strong even when the galaxy watched. He could not stop her. Not now. Finally, he spoke. "Lyra, you are my daughter, and though you defy me, I see the strength in you. I will not stop you, though the path ahead will be difficult. You must tread carefully, for the galaxy will test you." Lyra nodded, feeling a mixture of relief and resolve. "I understand, Father. Thank you." The ceremony ended, but the events of the day would be remembered for years. Princess Lyra had made a choice that no one could ignore. She had chosen love over royalty, freedom over expectation, and courage over compliance. As she and Evan left the grand hall together, whispers of admiration and curiosity followed them. Some were shocked, others inspired, and for the first time, Lyra realized that leadership was not only about following rules, it was about guiding with wisdom, compassion, and heart. That night, in a quiet garden away from the palace eyes, Lyra and Evan stood together, watching the twin moons rise over Zytheria. "You were amazing," Evan said softly. "I knew you could do it." Lyra smiled, leaning slightly against him. "I was terrified," she admitted. "But it felt right. And somehow having you here made it easier." "You have more courage than anyone I have ever met," Evan said, his voice sincere. "Not because you obey rules, but because you follow your heart." Lyra laughed softly, a sound of relief and joy. "I think I am just beginning to understand who I truly am." Evan took her hand, squeezing it gently, "And together, we will discover the life you deserve." For the first time, Lyra did not feel the weight of expectation pressing on her shoulders. She felt the lightness of choice, the thrill of freedom, and the warmth of love. And though the galaxy remained vast and full of challenges, she knew that with courage, and with Evan, she could face anything. The morning after the alliance ceremony, Zytheria felt different. The city was alive with murmurs and whispers. News of Princess Lyra's decision had spread quickly, reaching every corner of the floating capital. Some citizens were shocked, some impressed, and others quietly cheered the courage of their princess. Lyra walked through the palace gardens, holding Evan's hand. The twin moons had set hours ago, but the glow of the crystal fountains still lit their path. She felt lighter than she had in years. The weight of obligation had been lifted, replaced by a sense of freedom and clarity. "Do you think they will accept it?" Evan asked softly. "The nobles, the ambassadors, even your father?" Lyra shook her head, smiling faintly. "I do not know. But I have chosen my heart. That is all that matters for now. Evan nodded, understanding that sometimes courage was not about winning approval. It was about standing firm. Inside the palace, the king sat in his private chamber, staring at the ceremonial scroll that had been left unsigned. His advisors stood silently around him waiting for guidance. Some suggested anger, exile, or immediate enforcement of rules. Others, more quietly, wondered if perhaps the princess had shown a new kind of strength, one that could inspire loyalty, rather than fear. The king's eyes, however, were on his daughter. He could not deny her bravery. She had stood before the galaxy, made a choice, and done so with dignity and intelligence. For all his anger, he felt a reluctant respect. "Prepare the council," he said finally. "I will meet with her, alone." Lyra entered the chamber, her head held high. Evan followed at a respectful distance, ready to offer support but understanding the need for privacy. "My daughter," the king began, his tone stern yet not unkind. "You have defied tradition. You have chosen a path I did not expect." Lyra bowed slightly. "Father, I understand the weight of my actions, but I cannot live a life that is not my own. I cannot marry out of duty alone, without respect for my own heart." The king's gaze softened. "I have always wanted you to be strong. I see now that strength does not always lie in obedience. You have courage, Lyra, more than I imagined." Lyra felt a rush of relief. "Thank you, Father. I wish for your understanding, not your anger." The king nodded slowly. "It will take time, but I will try. Know this: your choice will be watched. Across the galaxy, you must be wise, careful, and honest." Lyra bowed again. "I will, Father." Word of Lyra's choice reached the council and the nobles. Some were outraged, seeing the defiance as dangerous. Others were inspired, realizing that leadership could be about courage and choice, not just rules and duty. In the following days, Lyra and Evan worked quietly to find ways to honor both the kingdom and their personal bond. They visited Zetheria's engineers and scientists, exploring new technologies that could strengthen the planet's security without relying solely on political alliances. Evan's knowledge of human innovation impressed many Zetherians. Machines that were once difficult to operate were suddenly simpler and more efficient. His ideas encouraged collaboration, showing that humans could bring not just diversity, but also wisdom to the galaxy. Lyra watched him with admiration. Not only did he care for her, but he also cared for her people, helping them see a new way forward. Her heart swelled with both love and pride. The king observed from a distance, initially skeptical of Evan's influence. But as he saw the people respond positively to collaboration and innovation, he began to realize that his daughter's choice might be a turning point. She was showing that leadership could be both compassionate and courageous. "Perhaps I judged too quickly," he admitted to Seren one evening. "Lyra is showing us a new path, and perhaps she has made me see the value of freedom in leadership." Seren nodded. "The heart is often the greatest guide, Your Majesty, and Princess Lyra has chosen hers wisely." Meanwhile, Lyra and Evan continued to meet secretly in private gardens and quiet chambers. Their love deepened with each conversation, each shared laugh, and each thoughtful moment. Yet they knew that their bond was more than romance. It was a bridge between species, a symbol of cooperation and understanding. One evening, while stargazing on a balcony high above the city, Lyra spoke softly. "Evan, I never imagined life could feel like this. Free, meaningful, alive." Evan held her hand. "You deserve this, Lyra. You have earned the right to choose, to love, to live fully. And I will stand beside you, always." Lyra leaned against him, feeling safe, hopeful, and strong. "Together," she said, "we can face whatever comes." But not everyone in the galaxy approved. Some distant worlds viewed Zetheria's defiance as dangerous. Ambassadors sent messages questioning the wisdom of a princess who rejected political marriage. Spies and diplomats whispered that the kingdom could be weakened by her choice. Lyra and Evan knew that their path would not be easy. They could expect challenges, misunderstandings, and opposition. Yet they also saw hope. The people of Zetheria, inspired by the princess's courage, began to speak openly about freedom, choice, and the value of love alongside duty. In the markets and streets, citizens whispered approval. Young nobles admired her bravery. Even some elders acknowledged that tradition alone could not sustain a world. It required courage, innovation, and heart. One day, the king invited Lyra to join a council meeting. She entered confidently, Evan, waiting outside to respect the palace rules. "My daughter," the king began, "today you will speak to the council. Tell them why you chose love, and why it matters for Zetheria's future." Lyra stepped forward, her voice calm and clear. "Members of the council, today I speak not just as a princess but as a citizen of Zetheria. Our kingdom has thrived for centuries through tradition and duty, but we must also recognize the value of courage, compassion, and choice. My decision to follow my heart is not a rejection of duty, it is an extension of it. I love this kingdom, and I love freedom, and I believe that by embracing both we can build a stronger, wiser Zetheria." The council members listened, some skeptical, some thoughtful. She continued, "Evan, a human, has shown me that intelligence, courage, and respect are not bound by species or title. Together we can strengthen our people, our technology, and our connections across the galaxy. This is not weakness, it is vision." Slowly, a few members began to nod. Some whispered to each other, realizing the truth in her words. Leadership required more than obedience. It required understanding, collaboration, and bravery. Outside the council chambers, Evan awaited Lyra's return. When she emerged, he smiled. "How did it go?" he asked. Lyra grinned, her heart light. "Some are still cautious, but others, they understand. It is a start." Evan took her hand. "We will face the rest together, step by step." Lyra squeezed his hand, feeling the strength of their partnership. "Step by step," she agreed, and the days passed. Zetheria slowly adjusted to its princess's bold choice. Citizens began to discuss the importance of love, courage, and personal choice alongside duty and tradition. Schools taught stories of bravery not just in battle, but in following one's heart. Engineers and scientists embraced collaboration with humans, exchanging ideas that strengthened the kingdom's technology. Even the king began to change. He still held to tradition, but he saw the value of listening, understanding, and allowing choice. His daughter had shown him that leadership required wisdom, yes, but also empathy and trust. One evening, he called Lyra to his chamber. "You have shown courage beyond your years," he said. "You have reminded me that strength is not just in obedience, but in the heart. I am proud of you." Lyra felt tears of relief and joy in her eyes. "Thank you, Father. That means more than I can say." The king smiled, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Continue to be brave, Lyra, and know that I will support you even when the path is uncertain." That night, Lyra returned to the garden where Evan waited. The stars above twinkled as if celebrating with them. They walked among the floating fountains, hands intertwined, hearts full of hope. "Look at the sky," Lyra said softly. "So vast, so full of possibilities." Evan nodded. "And we are free to explore it, together." Lyra rested her head on his shoulder. "Together," she whispered. In that moment, Zetheria was not just a kingdom of duty and tradition. It was a place of courage, love, and new beginnings. And Princess Lyra, who had chosen her heart over royalty, knew that she had started a change that could ripple across the galaxy. Even in a world bound by rules and expectation, love, courage, and freedom could prevail. The sun rose over Zetheria, casting a golden glow across the floating towers and crystal gardens. Princess Lyra stood on the palace balcony, her eyes sweeping over the city she loved. The past weeks had been a whirlwind, defying tradition, standing for love, and proving that courage could reshape a kingdom. Yet even with her heart lighter than ever, she knew the journey was not yet complete. Evan stood beside her, his hand brushing against hers. He had been her constant support, her partner in courage, and her guide in a world that suddenly seemed larger and more exciting than she had ever imagined. "Today is important," Lyra said softly. "Not just for us, but for Cytheria. People are watching. Some approve, some do not. But change takes time." Evan smiled. "We will face it together. Always. Your choice has inspired more than just hearts. It has inspired minds, curiosity, and hope." Lyra took a deep breath, letting the warm morning light fill her lungs. She felt strength in her chest and certainty in her heart. "Then let us begin this new chapter." The king had summoned a gathering of ambassadors, nobles, and citizens to announce a new vision for Cytheria. For weeks, whispers and speculation had filled the palace and streets. Now the entire city awaited answers, and Princess Lyra would speak, not just as a princess, but as a symbol of courage and change. She walked into the grand hall, Evan by her side. The room was filled with expectant faces, some skeptical, some curious, and some filled with admiration. The king sat at the front, his expression calm, his eyes observing his daughter with pride. Lyra stepped forward, her voice clear and steady. "Friends of Cytheria, citizens and ambassadors, today I speak not only as a princess, but as someone who has chosen to follow her heart. My actions have been questioned, criticized, and celebrated. And through them, I have learned something important. Courage, love, and choice are not weaknesses. They are the foundation of strength." The crowd murmured, some nodding, others whispering among themselves. Lyra continued, "Evan, who stands beside me, is a human. Some may see our bond as unusual or even dangerous, but in truth, it is a symbol that we can unite across differences, that understanding and respect are stronger than fear, and that the heart is as important as duty in guiding a kingdom." A noble elder rose from the back of the room. "Princess Lyra," he said, his voice cautious, "many fear that your choice threatens our alliances. How can you ensure the safety and prosperity of Cytheria?" Lyra met his gaze without hesitation. "By embracing cooperation, innovation, and respect. We have begun new collaborations with human engineers, combining their knowledge with our technology to strengthen our defenses and improve our society. Our alliances will remain strong, not because of forced marriages or fear, but because we lead with wisdom and heart. People follow those who inspire them, not those who demand obedience." The crowd fell silent, listening carefully. Even those who had opposed her began to see the truth in her words. Leadership, Lyra realized, was about courage, vision, and empathy, not just power. The king rose slowly, stepping beside his daughter. The room held its breath. "Princess Lyra," he said, his voice calm, "you have taken a path I did not expect, and yet, I see the wisdom in your choices. You have shown bravery, intelligence, and respect. I am proud of you." A wave of relief washed over Lyra. She bowed to her father. "Thank you, Father. Your support means more than words can express." He nodded, then addressed the crowd. "Let this day mark a new era for Cytheria, an era where courage, love, and choice guide our decisions. Let us move forward, together, stronger than before." The hall erupted in applause. Citizens cheered, nobles clapped, and ambassadors nodded in approval. Even some of the most skeptical voices acknowledged the truth. Cytheria was changing, and it was changing for the better. Later that evening, Lyra and Evan walked through the city streets. The floating gardens glowed under the twin moons, and citizens waved or nodded in respect and admiration. Children pointed at the princess and whispered about courage, love, and choice. It was a new world, a world that embraced both tradition and freedom. "Look at them," Lyra said softly. "They believe in us, in what we represent." Evan smiled. "They believe in courage, and you have given them hope." Lyra felt a warmth spread through her chest. she realized that love was not just a private feeling. It could inspire, guide, and create change. And together they could shape the future. The next days were filled with planning and action. Lyra and Evan worked with engineers, diplomats, and citizens to implement new projects. Human and Zetherian technologies combined to improve energy systems, transportation, and communication. Schools introduced programs that emphasized creativity, courage, and empathy. Citizens engaged in discussions about freedom, choice, and respect. Even the king, who had once demanded strict obedience, found himself learning from the younger generation. He realized that strength came not just from rules but from trust, collaboration, and heart. One night, high above the city in a quiet garden, Lyra and Evan sat together beneath a canopy of stars. "Do you ever think about how far we've come?" Lyra asked, her voice soft. Evan nodded. "Every day. And yet, I know there is still more to do. But with you, I feel that we can face anything." Lyra leaned against him. "I was so afraid of disappointing everyone. My father, the council, even myself. But now, I understand that the greatest courage is to follow your heart, even when the path is uncertain." Evan took her hand. "And the heart is never wrong, Lyra. You have shown that courage can change a kingdom." She smiled, feeling a sense of peace she had never known. The weight of duty had not disappeared, but it had transformed into purpose. Love, courage, and wisdom could guide decisions as strongly as tradition or power. Months passed, and Zetheria flourished. Citizens spoke openly about choices, freedom, and collaboration. Trade with human worlds expanded, and scientists discovered new ways to harness energy and improve life on the floating planet. Young nobles began to question old rules, seeking balance between tradition and personal choice. Princess Lyra and Evan continued to explore the galaxy together. They visited human worlds, Zetherian colonies, and distant planets, sharing knowledge and inspiring unity. Their bond was not just romantic, it was a symbol of the harmony possible when hearts and minds worked together. The king, observing from the palace, finally understood that his daughter's choice had not weakened the kingdom. It had strengthened it. Her courage and heart had inspired new ways of thinking, and her example encouraged others to lead with bravery and compassion. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the crystal towers, Lyra and Evan returned to the palace balcony where they had first met. The city below glowed with light, life, and hope. "I never imagined a life like this," Lyra said, leaning against Evan. "So full of freedom, love, and possibilities." Evan wrapped his arm around her. "You created it, Lyra. Your courage showed everyone that the heart is as important as duty. You changed the world." Lyra smiled, looking out over the city she loved. "And we will continue to change it, together." Evan kissed her forehead gently. Together. For the first time, Princess Lyra felt completely at peace. She was no longer bound only by expectation or tradition. She had chosen love, courage, and freedom, and in doing so, she had not only shaped her own destiny, but also the future of her people and the galaxy beyond. The stars twinkled above, as if celebrating with them. Zetheria had entered a new era, one where hearts and minds could guide leaders and where courage and love could unite worlds. Princess Lyra and Evan stood together, looking toward the future, knowing that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them hand in hand. And in that moment, the galaxy seemed full of promise, hope, and endless possibilities. Because sometimes, the greatest victories are not fought in battle, they are won in the heart.